Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to our next session and the meanwhile traditional CEO panel. And I always try to find interesting people near or less the same or very contrary. This time we have two boutique hoteliers, the one from Germany, at least based in Germany, but expanding now at least in the German-speaking market. Christoph Hoffmann, CEO and co-founder of the 25 Hours Hotel Company. Very warm welcome, Christoph.
Thank you.
And on this side, there's our guest from Asia who came in just for this panel. Thank you very much, Loh Lik Peng.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Loh Lik Peng is, I may say Peng, your first name is Peng. Peng is also the founder and president of the Unlisted collection today. And both gentlemen run hotels, which are also member of design hotels, by the way. That's something that connects both. But of course, we try to find out similarities today, but also differences between the European approach to boutique hotels and the Asian approach to boutique hotels. As we learned today, individual concepts do have a chance to find their guests and make them pay high rates. I don't want to talk too much. I think we start with this impressions of their collections, hotel collections. And where's my remote? Let me try this. And Christoph, I kindly ask you, please, to comment on the next photos.
That's me.
That's me? It's you? So where's this? Which property is it?
Our hotel in Hamburg, in Hafen City. We have two properties. One is called Number One, which is based in the western part of Hamburg, and this one is in the Hafen City, which is a new, very large development, Harbor City in English. And it's, as you can see, very strongly related to the theme of the harbor.
Where's the design line?
The design line is, well, actually the core idea was Kuddeldaddel-Du. Kuddeldaddel-Du is a book from Joachim Ringelnatz. Joachim Ringelnatz is a very well-known northern German poet, and he makes poetry about slippery sailormen and stories about,
slippery sailors.
what's going on the sea and elsewhere. So that's the core idea of the hotel.
Okay, so you still tell stories, try to find stories.
Yes.
Okay.
This is also in the lobby. You can see some bikes. We are very strongly related to the mobility idea. In all of our hotels, we try to gather the idea of, being, first of all, within the community of the city and trying to be as flexible as possible. First of all, bikes are very beautiful, and second, you are very flexible with bikes, as you, I'm sure, know.
And the guests can take the bikes?
The guests can take the bikes. These are design bikes. In front of the house, in front of the building, we have normal bikes, like Amsterdam bikes, we call them in Germany. But Amsterdam people don't know about that. And with them you can, tour throughout the city.
That's a great idea.
And we also have two minis, like from the company Mini, with which you can use for free, doing a ride through Hamburg or Zurich or Vienna.
Oh.
That's something which reminded me a bit about your hotels, because it's very rough. It's Hapag-Lloyd is based in Hamburg, and we have a very good relation to Hapag-Lloyd, and we the guys from Hapag-Lloyd gave us some containers for free. Actually, we built the hotel during the financial crisis, and there were lots of containers standing in the free harbor of Hamburg, and we cut them apart and put them together again. And this one is like a hydraulic meeting room, so you can open and close the wall of that container.
The side wall, you can lift the side wall?
Yes, it's very noisy, and it takes 20 minutes until it's open. And in that time you cannot talk in the lobby, but it attracts people.
And the meeting room is really in use?
It is in use almost every day, and actually I was a bit disappointed, because it's the most beautiful sight is when it's open and when there's nobody sitting there. It looks very beautiful from the design aspect, but we have to make money, therefore People use that room. They pay a lot of money for it to do like semi-formal meetings because it's not like acoustically, it's not completely shielded. So
how much is it for a day?
It depends on the consumption. I don't know. I think around 500 euros if you just use it for a day.
For a day?
Yes,
Okay.
More or less. Yeah, that's our club floor in the same hotel. Still, we're still in the harbor city. It's on the first floor. In the background, you see a vinyl room. We chose to have a vinyl room in that hotel, and the idea came actually from every hotel has a library or a chimney room or a reading room. We took a vinyl room. We have 2 old record players, very good ones with the old sound speakers and loudspeakers, and we have lots of vinyl records, very expensive vinyl records from all over the world, and people go upstairs and they play their own music, they drink beer, and you can smoke in that room. And in front of it you have the club room. It's related. We had one other association with a Siemens mission. We have a Siemens mission in Hamburg, and we went there and we looked what a Siemens mission has in file, and the club floor is very important where the salesmen meet and mingle.
And the furniture in front, very short? The furniture in front of the photo?
That's like from a Turnhalle, how do you say, like from a exercising fitness room from the 70s.
School.
That's my time when I was young. I had to jump over those things. They don't exist anymore.
A pommel horse.
Yeah. That's Vienna. It looks very elegant, and in fact it is, as long as you look outside. It is less elegant if you go inside, but it's a very colorful hotel. The theme of that hotel is circus, and circus is related to, we call it vintage, the Austrian call it vintage. So the whole design concept is based on individual collected vintage furniture from all over the world. The painting on the wall is made by Olaf Hayek from Berlin. He's also the guy in charge of Taschenverlag Bücher, if you see the beautiful Taschenverlag Bücher. And he made pictures, wild pictures of crazy people. We have women with beards, and we have sometimes people who don't want to stay in that room with women and beards. And
another impression, I have to become a bit faster. And this one is the lounge.
That's Dachboden, we call it. It's on the highest floor. It's on the top floor. It's a bar, and it was given to us more like for the faith until we opened a large hotel, and it became it became the hot spot of Vienna for music evenings and things like that. So we have a line of people, at least 2 or 3 days in a week, to come up into the Dachboden.
It looks like a gym as well again.
Yes, it looks like a gym, but it's not. It's more like for drinking. And
Peng, do you like his concept?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the aesthetic is exactly the kind of thing I really like in a hotel because it's so individualistic. You can't go to a furniture store and pick up the stuff he does, it's fantastic.
Okay, let's have a look at the Unlisted collection. So you work, your hotels, individual hotels, all operate under their own name, natural names, and don't have a brand relation to Unlisted?
No, well, we have an umbrella brand which we call Unlisted Collection, but under that, all the hotels are individual. Okay. So you know what, we do only one of that hotel in that particular location with that particular name, and it will be a certain theme for that.
This
hotel.
was the first one.
This is my first hotel. We opened in 2003, in 1929. This hotel is interesting because I got it very cheap.
Sorry, where is it? In Singapore?
It's in Singapore, yeah. So I was practicing as a lawyer then, and it was a very depressing time in Singapore. It was the last Asian crisis. And this hotel is in the red light area of Singapore, so it used to be a brothel. It's doing hourly rates, and I think at that time it went bust and they couldn't sell it. The bank, nobody would buy it because obviously it was in the wrong part of town. But I looked at it, I was like, wow, what a beautiful building. So it became my first hotel and did really well. And this is actually New Majestic, which is my second hotel.
What's the name of the first hotel?
1929. Because the building was built in 1929. Cool. So we decided, I couldn't think of a more original name, so I just called it by the date it was built. This is the New Majestic, which was actually a hotel that was built as a hotel in Singapore in 1928. And by the time I bought it, it had fallen to disrepair. There was a karaoke downstairs, and it was pretty terrible. But we turned it into a 30-room hotel. Before that, it was an 80-room hotel. You know, so we did it into a more kind of stylish, more like all-suite type hotel. And we got lots of artists to do works throughout the hotel, which was quite unusual at the time. And actually, it was a very difficult process. I probably won't do it again because we had 30 different rooms and we had 30 different artists doing the work. And you know, the construction was difficult to say the least. Yeah. But it was an interesting project. It was fun.
But inside, you have decided to go for a more modern line.
Yeah, because we had a bit more space. So you know, it was a mixture of kind of modern furniture as well as fairly bespoke furniture, stuff we found, vintage stuff, you know, so you can see barber chairs there and things like that. And I collect a lot of chairs, so, you know, I had a huge collection of Danish chairs, which ended up in a hotel. So we
Where's
became
this?
This is also in Singapore. But you see, the interesting thing about this hotel is actually the ceiling. These are the original ceilings from the 1928 when the hotel was first built. Because when we took it over, you know, there were all these different layers, and I stripped it right back. I took all the false ceiling down, and I was like, wow, this is the original ceiling. Of course, it wasn't in great condition, but I loved it because it had so much character, and it really had that history. And I said, well, you know, let's not restore it, just leave it. So everyone always thought that, hey, maybe you guys ran out of budget and you didn't finish the ceiling. So I always had to explain to people. I said, no, we did it deliberately, you know. But it became a nice kind of thing. And this is our project that we finished in London in 2010. This is the Town Hall Hotel. This was my largest project to date. It's 98 rooms. This was the former Town Hall of Bethnal Green. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with London, but Bethnal Green is quite a rough area of London. At the time it was. This was before the Olympics, you know, when we bought it. I think we bought this building in 2007. At the time it was still really rough area. But this was a beautiful building, you know. It was the former Town Hall of that borough. And me coming from Singapore, when I walked in, I was like, wow, I didn't realize they could sell town halls, you know.
So you loved the change, huh?
Yeah, so I bought it. And this is our project in Shanghai.
No hotel, oh, isn't it?
It doesn't look like a hotel. Most people think it's the old warehouse, which, funnily enough, it was an old warehouse. This is on the South Bund in Shanghai, with the Waterhouse Hotel. So again, you can see we deliberately left the building old. We didn't try and restore it. Basically, we built, the shell inside is new, but the rest of the building, we left it because, you know, for me, the beautiful part of these buildings is really kind of the character, the unrestored character, the really old bits. And this is the lobby.
And when will you finish the lobby?
Well, that's what everyone always asks me too. Did you run out of budget? We didn't paint the walls, you know. So we left it, and really it still looks like that today. And I kind of like the fact that it has because it's very high ceilings, it feels like a very cathedral-like space, but at the same time it's very brutalist and concrete. And you have rusty bits of metal hooks where the stuff used to go in the warehouse and things like that. So it really shows its old industrial history, you know. And it's not everyone likes it, but you know. But I personally, it's one of my favorite hotels that I've built, you know. And then you can see above there, that's the room. One of the rooms has a view inside the lobby. So, you know, so it's quite interesting. For those who don't like it, they can pull the curtains. But I actually like staying in that room because for me, you can really see a lot of activity going on.
Christoph, would we in Germany get a permission to run such a hotel?
Well, I think yes, and that's the precious thing about existing buildings. I think you can do much more out of existing buildings if you take out what you have already in an old building. I could imagine, yes. The difficult thing is to make something characteristic like this out of a new building. Therefore, I think it's a concept of yours as well to take those buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, I only ever work with old buildings, so for me, it's that kind of process is almost natural. Yeah. And this is our hotel, Wanderlust, and I guess the Germans would call it Wunderlust, right? But in Singapore and Little India. So again, this is a very ethnic district in Singapore, but a really vibrant one. If any of you ever go to Singapore, Little India is a place you definitely need to visit. There are not many hotels there, because traditionally it's been a very traditional Indian area. There are a lot of provision shops and things like that. Is the British colonial Singapore, that was where they housed all the Indians. So it still has very much of that character and history. So this was kind of really the first boutique hotel there. And it was a really fun project because it was an old school. And when we took it over, it had been converted to the Buddhist Welfare Association. I think the building was built in the early 1920s too. And it was quite an interesting building because it's an Art Deco facade, which was quite unusual for the area. So
What is real in this room? The yellow shadow, I guess a bit, of
Yeah,
course,
everything
but what
else
about
is
the
new.
yellow shadow? What about the chair in the background?
Yeah, all of that
It looks like a
really just
drawing.
cutouts. Yeah,
Yeah?
they're literally cutouts. So this room, if we want to reconfigure it, we can change the whole layout by removing all the stuff, and within 2 days we can change it. So it's a process, yeah.
Okay, do you change it regularly, or
We
is
change
just-
it once every few months, yeah. The whole idea
Really?
is that it's a different kind of like cartoon, almost like living in a cartoon, yeah.
Okay, very nice.
And this is the lobby of the
This
hotel.
could be an Asian 25 hours hotel.
Yes, that's what I was saying. In some
Yeah.
ways, the aesthetic, was very familiar to me.
That's Wanderlust, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, we left it quite bare. We polished the floors, and really that was about it. And then we put in the furniture.
Okay, fine. Thank you for the first impression. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Super. I think both of you and your teams, you are very creative people. Somehow a little bit crazy, especially you. You did something completely different before. You were a barrister, you said.
I was a barrister, yes.
And
Right.
a depressed one.
Well, at the time, it was very depressing to be a lawyer because I was doing only bankruptcy work. This was the tail end of the last Asian crisis. So, I think Europe had its crisis, 10 years afterwards, 2008. But in Singapore, it was 2007. I mean, not 2007, 1997. So at the time, up to about 2001, 2002, it was just 5 or 6 years of really depressive work. So as a lawyer, it wasn't much fun. If a lawyer was practicing in Europe now, if you're in Greece, you'll be doing a lot of bankruptcy work, and it's pretty depressing. So I was just looking for something different to do.
And you love your work today as a hotelier and owner?
Yeah. But
Great.
I think one of the things I learned about that was that these deep recessions give you a lot of opportunities. Because I would never have started as a hotelier. I would never been able to buy my first hotel really cheaply if it wasn't a very deep recession at the time.
You founded Unlisted Collection in 2000. Today you run 6 boutique hotels and 6 restaurants in Singapore, Shanghai and London.
Yeah.
And you grew up in London in the UK, right?
Well, actually, I grew up in Ireland.
In
I was
Ireland.
born in Ireland. My dad was working there at the time, so I spent many years there. I was in boarding school there. But I kind of spent a lot of my formative years there, but I was largely in Singapore otherwise.
Okay. And the company is yours, family-run
Yeah.
business?
That's right.
Great. How many staff do you have?
In total, we probably have about 450, something like that, 450, 500 staff, yeah.
Okay. And in the headquarter, may I ask?
Headquarters is in Singapore.
And how many are there?
I think we probably have about 50 in the headquarters.
What
So-
about you?
Yeah,
Gustav?
seems to be a similar structure.
size, huh?
We have a small headquarter based in Hamburg with reservations, with controlling, with human resources. Lately, we just hired a lady who takes care of it, and the head of department heads. In all the hotels together, we will have eventually, with the opening of the Viennese hotel, which will be our biggest one with 220 rooms, we will have around 300 people altogether in the hotels.
When checking out your companies, I found that you operate extremely small hotels,
Yeah.
real boutique hotels, which is very unusual also in Asia, because if you talk about boutique hotels there, we talk about 200-300
Yeah.
room hotels,
Yeah.
but yours are really smart. You have rooms, hotels of 19 rooms,
Yeah.
and the biggest one is now 90,
98, yeah.
98?
Yeah, which
So,
is a
so
lot.
how do you manage to make money?
Well, I actually find that once your hotel is around the 30-room mark, this is because, my first hotel was 32 rooms, was 1929. I found that I could make money with that size. And at that time, I couldn't afford to build a big hotel. I literally did a hotel that I found within the shell of that building, how many rooms can I put in? That was my first hotel. I didn't know anything about hotels at the time. So in a way that ignorance kind of led me down that path of boutique hotels, People always tell me, you'd make more money if you build a very large hotel. And I think that's probably true, but it wouldn't be as much fun, So I actually enjoy doing these small hotels, yeah. We just did a 15-room one in London too.
15
yeah.
room London. Where is it in London?
In Leicester Square, we bought over the old St. John's Hotel. And it was already running as a 15-room. So again, those numbers do work. They're okay. You just have to run them in a very smart way, I think.
So your boutique hotels deserve the name. Your hotels are a bit bigger.
Yeah, well, our smallest hotel was a 49-room property in Frankfurt, and we had the opportunity to double it by buying the building next door. And we did that also because we weren't really so happy financially. It was doing well, and if I would be the guy who stands behind the reception desk and my wife is doing the restaurant or whatever, the housekeeping, we could make quite a bit of money. But with the structure of a company, with a headquarter and with everything we're doing, it became a bit boring money-wise. So, and we realized also in the very beginning, we said, well, boutique hotels, individuality, we cannot become too large, and we are still trying to, have a certain maximum level. But on the other hand, if you do bigger hotels, take the property in Hamburg with 170 rooms, you can create more experience within the hotel because you have more space, you have more areas to give it to the people, you can make a larger gastronomy. So I'm a bit two-folded. I love very small hotels because they give you the impression as a guest that it's your hotel, but larger hotels can become a bit more exciting.
What attracts people more, the unusual, exceptional design, or is it the combination with F&B, with a special F&B concept? What do you think, both?
Well, I think for me, the F&B is important, but it primarily draws the local people. So when I set up a restaurant within hotels, my target market is always the locals. And once you make a success of it, and lots of people go, then you get a sudden buzz about the hotel. So always look at it as a kind of a good way of making the hotel relevant to the locals, because locals will not normally stay in my hotels. But we do really good restaurants there, they'll come, and it gives the hotel a different flavor because you get lots of locals going through,
Some of your restaurants are part of a hotel, others are standalone restaurants, but you have, in both times, you have Michelin star restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why is that important?
Well, for me, I love food. I'm a big foodie, so I actually love setting up restaurants. So for me, it's I never look at it as I look at it as a different business model for hotels. And because some of our hotels are very small, like in Shanghai, for example, 19 rooms, the restaurant makes more money than the hotel.
How much more? In relation?
Well, turnover-wise, it can make twice what the hotel does. But in profit margins, obviously, the margins for a restaurant are smaller than a hotel. But at the same time, you can make maybe 2 or 3 times what your hotel does. If your restaurant does well. And we have a big event space in Shanghai too, and that makes a lot more money than the hotel. It's the same with our smaller property in London. Actually, the restaurant makes more money than the hotel.
Asians' passion for food is known for. Yeah. And but you still earn more money with the rooms. With the rooms,
yes. But on the other hand, I agree with Peng. First of all, we have a saying by now: we hate hotel restaurants, and the worst word we know is Frühstücksraum. Sorry, Peng, but breakfast room. Yeah. When we develop a hotel and we talk to designers or architects and they mention the word Frühstücksraum, they're gone because we hate those typical hotels where you have those empty restaurants, non-inspired, and they are only there because they need to be there for the people who have breakfast. So what we are trying to achieve is that we give the hotel identity and in their own the local spirit by doing a nice gastronomy. On the other hand, we experience now, since we have 6, 7, 8 hotels in different cities and countries, that it's very difficult to make sure that you keep the level of standard you want to achieve. Because usually if you do one restaurant, you have a patron and he takes care of it. And we need to have 6, 7, 8 patrons. And on the other hand, we consider ourselves as being the patrons, but we cannot copy ourselves. So it's like it's a big challenge to be as good as real gastronomic people.
Yeah, it's much harder to scale a restaurant than a hotel. It's very true. Yeah.
But I just imagine when you talk to a banker and you tell him that you don't like the word Frühstücksraum, breakfast room. So how tough is it to convince your bank, your investors, your future partners?
They're very happy because we talk about Raumkontinuum, about multifunctional ideas. You saw the lobby in the hotel, and yours seems to be the same. And at the Wanderlust, where you can combine different things to do. So if you have an intelligent design concept, you need less space than if you just categorize by I need to have a breakfast room, I need to have a meeting room, and so forth. You can be a bit more intelligent with the space needed, and that's according to banks, because it gives you a better optimization when it comes to the space.
I mean, the whole idea of design hotels is usually that you have to think outside the box. Usually your spaces are less defined, so it's correct. I mean, it's much more interesting to see lots of lively different activities going on in a space rather than say, oh, that's a meeting room, and people in suits sitting there, taking notes. I mean, it's really, if that was the sort of hotel, you might as well go to a Holiday Inn,
Yeah, I can imagine very well that your guests, they would love to stay in the other ones' properties, that their taste might be similar. Do you agree? Is this?
Absolutely,
Yeah. So is this a new trend? We can say that there's a global common taste. Meanwhile,
I think there is a certain kind of aesthetic that our target customers will like, certainly, and yeah, I would say that there is probably quite a lot of commonality among the things they like.
Yeah, it's I think it's still a small target audience. You have many other groups of people who don't care about our kind of hotels.
Probably hate it. Yeah.
Yes, and they still they prefer to have the posh hotels, whatever. But I think there's a small niche market, and it's like a like-mindedness, you call it in English, all over the globe, because it becomes much smaller, the whole world. And style is nothing which is so different from what we do in Germany, whereas you do it in Singapore, for example. I completely agree with that, but it's only for a small group of people all over the world.
Okay, I can imagine that he gets his hotels full, that you will have full hotels.
I mean,
just running by sizes of 20, 30, 40 rooms, but it might become more challenging for you, maybe in Vienna, where you will go up to 220 rooms now.
Yeah, I don't know. We were supposed to open 3 days ago, but we have some difficulties with the floors. I'm quite confident, but we experienced, I always hoped when we doubled the size of the hotel in Frankfurt from 49 to 97, and I was hoping that we have immediately the same occupancy as we had it before. And then I was making some calculations, and I was very happy. But it's not like that. You have different market niches which you have to target, and it takes a little while. But we're confident.
How long does it take to be recognized as a cool hotel or a hip hotel? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on how you market yourself. I mean, my first hotel, 1929, because it was literally one of the first to come up in Singapore. And because of the location, it was quite a notorious red light area, It's obviously very cleaned up now, but at that time it was still notorious. We pretty much gained instant fame. Papers wrote about us. They were like, wow, this crazy person opened a hotel on Keong Siak Road, So that particular hotel kind of taught me a lot of lessons about marketing and the media and how important it can be. Because we went from the first week being quite empty to being full all the way through. And that was... We opened in the middle of SARS, At that time, it was 2003 was the SARS epidemic in Asia. And despite the SARS going on and most hotels in Singapore doing single-digit occupancy rates, we did very well. But again, partly because we had 32 rooms, But also because the media kept writing about us at the time. So
I think PR is an important factor, isn't it?
Yes, but before it comes to PR, I think it's about people. And it's very interesting for me when I saw that the brand 25 Hours was bringing in people, staff, partners of mine, employees who strengthen the idea of 25 Hours. It doesn't help if you just create a brand and make a nice design. it's at the end of the day, as always, it's the people who make the brand as it is. And if you want to be cool and hip or whatever, you need to have certain kind of characters in the hotel.
Yeah, you need the right stuff. And you know, PR is a double-edged sword. If you do lots of PR and your hotel is wrongly positioned and you tell people you're a boutique hotel, you're not really, you end up actually making it much worse for yourself. You know?
And so it's about community.
Yeah.
It's always, again, if you're not within the local community, you will not have a global effect on it, because the local community defines the global PR, I believe.
Would your hotel groups have come alive without the internet?
I think it would have been much more difficult for sure in terms of the business model that we run. You know, I mean, you did have independent boutique hotels before the internet was very strong. I think the way they marketed themselves then would have been very different from the business models now, you know, because now you really can reach a much wider audience just through your presence on the web and the type of PR you do through the web. You know, and this tool wasn't available 10 years ago, I guess.
But you both of you,
20 years ago.
But what's your opinion about
Well,
that?
from the marketing perspective, yes, I agree with Peng, but there's also another perspective. I wonder how it would have been if I would have to develop hotels in Vienna, in Zurich, in Frankfurt, in Berlin at the same time without having the pace of communication as we have it now. If I would write a letter to our developers in Vienna and it takes 5 days and he responds, I think eventually it would have taken much longer to build a hotel and to get in touch with those people. So I think expanding goes much faster as well.
Yeah, I would agree with him, yeah, because I do communications with Australia and things.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and that definitely wasn't available before. Yeah.
But it's stressful at the same time, somehow.
25 Hours now operates 6 hotels, but you also have expansion plans also for destinations or locations outside the German-speaking market, I guess. Isn't it a challenge to multiply or to transfer this individual idea to the next property and the next one and the next one?
Yes, very much, and to
change it.
I think it's, well, each hotel development is very complex because you have lots of people and institutions being involved. You have the general constructor, you have the operator, you have the investor, you have the designer, and each project has its own organic development, and you need to be very close to that development to orchestrate it the right way. And I wasn't always successful with it, but I could imagine doing the same kind of thing in, let's say, Singapore, being German, or doing the same kind of thing in San Francisco. It will become much more difficult. And the big chains, they make it in a different way. They create one concept and then they make copy-paste. They can give everything to the developers back on the other side of the world, and then you come back 2 years later and look what happened. I'm exaggerating. And in our case, every week we are in the planning meetings. We try to be very close to the designers. We try to create concepts within the city. So it's somehow hard. I think it will work if you find the right partners, let's say in Singapore. But then again, if I would ask Peng, he would rather do his own hotels than helping us to make our hotels, because then he wouldn't make as much money. Maybe, I don't. We have to talk about it later. But it's all about partnership, trust, and communication.
Yeah, I think it depends on which market you go to. You know, pretty much any of the developing markets you go to. Even someone like me, when I go to China or somewhere like Indonesia, where perhaps your infrastructure isn't as sound, your legal kind of administrative structure around that country isn't as sound, you would not try and do it yourself because it's a recipe for disaster. You have to find local partners. You have to find people you can work with. You know, somewhere like Singapore, you probably have a very easy time because I think when you go there, you know, the banking system there, legal system is there. everything will help you in that way. But when you go to some of these other countries, it's not like that, you know. You have a contract, but maybe you go to court and it's you know, you still won't win. So it really depends on where you go,
sure. I think that's a global challenge wherever you go, and doesn't depend on the type of hotel, definitely.
No.
But do you also develop and build the hotels, and you own them as well?
Yeah. So we are relatively unique in that we own, operate, develop everything ourselves. Yeah.
Why did you do this? Decide to go for it?
I think because I kind of came from a legal background. So for me, you know, that the whole structure of owning and developing and running was not that kind of unfamiliar to me. It was just something that seemed logical. And once I did the first one, the second one, the third one, it just became that business model. I looked at a property. I'd do the sums and say, well, if I invested in this property, I buy it and I do the development costs and I run it as a hotel, what my returns are. So that's really my business model, rather than perhaps going to someone and say, I'll manage the hotel for you and do it, you know. So for me, the real estate part of the business model is just part of the company's DNA.
Okay, so does this mean you may sell the properties one day?
Yeah, I mean, you never say never, but my model also makes it very hard to expand. We have much, which is why we do smaller hotels too, you know. I can't afford to build a 200-room hotel. Certainly not at the pace we do it otherwise. So for me, you know, these 30, 60, 100-room hotels are comfortable size. And I like doing them, and there's something within my financial capability.
I read in another article, your first hotel in 1929 cost $5 million that time?
Yeah, at that time, the whole thing, everything.
The whole thing, the whole
everything. As I said, Singapore was, you know, you couldn't give these properties away at that time. They were liabilities, you know. You could get them pretty much for free.
But I guess you will definitely have an increase in value up to today?
Yes. Yeah. And each time we've done it, we've been able to ride on the success of the next one. And that's how I've been able to do it. I wouldn't be sitting here now if we didn't have that sort of that growth, because otherwise you can't do it.
Are Asian hotels still as profitable as they have been 3-4 years ago?
Not in somewhere like Singapore anyway, you know, because I think Singapore has seen a large success in the last few years, and even now, you know, Singapore didn't really fall into a deep recession. So hotel occupancies are very high in Singapore. Hotel valuations are extremely high in Singapore now.
And Shanghai?
And Shanghai, yes, you know, to some extent, yes, but I think Shanghai is a much less of a real estate model for hotels, certainly, you know. Most of the hotels there are more management contracts and things like that. So I think the business model in Shanghai, with their shorter leases and things like that, is quite different from Singapore. Singapore, the hotel developers are all into the real estate play.
Christoph, you work with institutional investors, among others. What's your impression of financing today? And is there the awareness boutique hotels need in the market? Or is it still tough to get financing?
Well, I think it depends on the location. Zurich is different from Vienna, from Hamburg, from Frankfurt. But there's one thing in common. First of all, there used to be a competition against office space or even residential. Like take Munich, they strongly need residential space. But especially the office space idea is changing, I think, on a global way, because there are not so many offices needed anymore. Number one. Number two, I think people start to realize in Germany, in Europe at least, that it's got advantages to have one tenant who takes care of the building, who creates value to the building because of the brand. I think that helps a lot to make hotel investments more attractive. Because if you calculate on the long run, you may have a better profit from hotels than if you have 10, 12 different companies who are coming and leaving, and you have to organize the whole thing. So if you take that in consideration, I think hotels become more and more interesting, yes. In Germany, yeah. And I'm talking only about our small market. We do lease contracts, maybe one more thing. That's something which is still very important in Germany, and investors are not, as in Asia, as far as I understand, as familiar with the operation of a hotel. management contracts as you have them, or in the States, need know-how about the company, about the operation of a hotel. And in Germany, there are a few institutions who want to become involved in the operation.
Would you be willing to sign a lease contract in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think each market you go to, you have to localize. You have to find out what the business practice is. You know, you can't come in from a different place and arrogantly say, no, I only do it my way, you know, otherwise I'm not going to do it. I think if you did that, you'd just stay in your home country. I mean, when we went to Shanghai, our thing there is not really a property deal. Again, it's a long-term management contract. You have to do all the investment, but they don't give you the title. They say you have the right to operate for a certain number of years. So when I first went there, I was scratching my head. I was like, wow, how is that going to work? But I realized it's just the way it is, you know. That's their business practice, and the management contract is quite secure for the period you have it, and you make your money that way. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to you know, depending on the market I go to operate within the local conditions.
To which European places would you like to go?
You know, I think all of Europe is exciting, particularly the key gateway cities, you know. Any of the key gateway cities in Europe, from Amsterdam to Rome to Berlin, Paris, yeah, any of these. I mean, I tend to only operate urban hotels, so it'd have to be a fairly vibrant city, but Europe is, you know, I know there's not, people are not that keen on going to Europe at the moment, but I always look at it as an opportunity, because you probably not be able to pick up assets at the prices that they are now if there wasn't in a crisis, you know. It's the same thing with my first property in Singapore.
But your first step or your first priority would be the property. You look for assets.
Yes.
Yes, sure. And where do you want to expand to in detail?
First of all, we are looking. We want to go to cities which where our brand becomes positively infected. So take Amsterdam. It's a city which is a very 25 hours minded place, or we believe. The whole Scandinavian places we love. On the other hand, it's quite difficult to get something in, let's say, Copenhagen or Stockholm and make money on it. I agree with the idea of Spain, Italy. Italy is a very interesting market because you don't have any, most of the hotels are very old. You either have luxury hotels, but you don't have that lifestyle factor, apart maybe from Milan. And on the other hand, we've tried Italy every once in a while, and apart from having a very good meal, and I love to eat as well, it was most of the time very difficult to understand how to get together. So it's, again, the cultural aspect, but we would love to do hotels in places like Milan, Barcelona, Amsterdam, certainly.
I would like to focus on one more point, that's distribution and sales, online sales, etc. Just how do you, both of you, how do you manage to navigate through all these distribution channels today in order to attract people to you, not as a chain? You both of you are no chain. It takes much more effort to attract awareness. I guess you spend a lot of money for this. So how does it work, and who wants to start?
Well, first of all, coming back to our little headquarter, as we call it, in my days when I was still working in the hospitality industry, sales was still sales by going to a lady who's assisting the general manager of a company, and then you bring some gifts and you try to be a nice guy, and then you get the business. Nowadays, we don't focus that strongly anymore on typical sales managers. We have them on site, but we invest much more money on revenue management, on yielding, on social media, on people who really control those kind of systems. And that's the sales as we do it nowadays. And it's not as it used to be in the 90s.
Do you cooperate with tour operators?
Sure, yeah, depending on the city. In Frankfurt, we do tour operators, but nobody comes to Frankfurt to do a vacation or city breaks. Okay. It's different in Vienna, it's different in Hamburg, where we get a lot of business from tour operators.
And how many people do you get now booked directly through your web engine?
Altogether, if you take all the booking engines like Booking.com, it's about 50-60% of the total bookings, I think. Yeah, so it's quite a big number, and one of the big challenges, I'm sure you have it as well, is how can we minimize the money we spend on the fees, because that is something which goes up every year. We
It's the same as you?
Yeah, same. I mean, OTAs typically charge anything from 15 to 20%. You know,
it's worse than energy.
Yeah,
because everybody talks about energy costs or labor costs, but the biggest issue right now with us is the fees on OTAs.
I mean, so we try only to allocate, say, 20% of our inventory to OTAs because, you know, as Christoph says, it's crazy. Otherwise, all your money.
Can you limit it at 25%?
Yeah, basically, we just give them a certain amount of room inventory, and that's it. You know, and we do a lot of. I mean, typically about 30 to 40% of our sales comes through our own website. So we spend a lot of time marketing our own website. You know, and also coming to events like this, where you're sitting in a stand with design hotels, and so there are various strategies that we employ. But certainly, we quite similar to 25 hours, we spend a lot of time looking at those kind of internet marketing strategies and yield management. Yeah. You have to, because, you know, otherwise you're going to be, if you give all your inventory to the OTAs, literally, you know, 20% of your income goes to them, and it's not sustainable.
Do you think you will survive next to the big chains? Will boutique hotels have a chance to grow?
Yes, I believe very much, because I think it's going to be hard for the big chains to compete. It sounds a bit not arrogant, but a bit. But in every city you go, you have individual players like Peng, like us, like others, and it's so easy nowadays to find those places. In the 90s, it was impossible, or you know, in the earlier days, when my parents went to some places, they wanted to have security. If they went to Hong Kong, they said, okay, let's go to the Sheraton because I know what I get. Nowadays, you Google, you Facebook, you find out the hippest, the newest, the coolest place in town, and it's on top of it very easy to make a booking. So I think that's a big challenge for the big operators, and also the how do you call it, like the Airbnb products. That's another big challenge for all of us.
The private accommodations that pick up much here now.
I mean, for me, I've never really seen the big hotels as competitors, because, you know, for me, they obviously operate on a very different level. As Christoph says, they attract a certain clientele, and there's always a market for them. You know,
well, but they do try to get hold of individual hotels. I just name one, Marriott and its Autograph collection. Yeah. Which touches historical buildings as well, just for an example, or we do have other types. So they do realize the niche and try to approach this niche from their side. So is this in competition for you, or potential competition?
Not really. I always look at those models like the W and the Indigo and all that. They focus only on one area. They look at a design of a hotel and say, oh, I'm going to do something really cool, and put lots of really cool furniture, and they think that is really what it's about. Whereas when you look at most boutique hotel operators, where we go to are interesting neighborhoods, and we are much more agile than them. You know, we will go to a lot of the hotels that I see coming up are the ones setting up in these new neighborhoods that are really interesting. That frankly, all these large Starwood and all that will not be able to. They're not agile enough. They don't see these trends quickly enough. So they will follow on, and eventually, you know, they say, oh, this is a cool hotel. I'll copy the furniture that they're doing or the style of the paint, and then they do this hotel. But actually, the context is completely wrong. Okay. So every time I look at these big hotels, I'm like, okay, on the surface, I can see what they're trying to do, but usually the product is not really that how I would see a boutique hotel. You know, in an interesting neighborhood with interesting local talent and stuff going there. So I do think they can operate, kind of copy that model on a certain level, but they, to me, most of the time, they don't really get it.
Clear words. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now your time to ask some questions. Just so you have anybody cool questions. Maybe first the gentleman over here, there, he was faster. Do we have a micro? Macy, you are the second, and then Andreas Pflaum again. Just give us a second, please. Claudia, the gentleman is over there on this side. And please, would you tell us your name or your company or this country you come from, please?
I'm Jairam. I'm from India, Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a lawyer like Mr. Peng, but I'm running a green hotel now at Bangalore. Basically, I'm an organic farmer. So I would like to ask a question, Mr. Peng. And what were your teething problems because you are a lawyer turned into a hotelier? I too had lots of issues. So can I just know what are your teething problems, initial stages?
I think for me the greatest challenge at that beginning was kind of trying to find out how I should design the rooms or run the hotel. You know, I think these are very basic questions, and if you don't come from a hoteling background, you kind of think, well, maybe I've stayed in lots of hotels, I know what I'm doing. And then really you sit down with the architect and you're trying to tell him how to design a room, and then, you know, within the first hour you realize I'm totally out of my depth. So what I did was to speak to lots of hoteliers and make friends with hoteliers and I hired someone who was a bit more experienced and helped me through that process. And I think that was an important thing. I mean, within the first, 3 months of trying to design the hotels, I realized I was completely out of my depth. So I ran and got help. So I would advise you to do the same thing.
Okay. Question answered? Okay, fine. Macy, please.
Okay. Yes, good afternoon. Macy Marvel from the Lausanne Hotel School in Switzerland. I'd like to ask both of the panelists about how they work with destination to promote. There is no point of view of destination promotion. How do you fit into that? Do you work with the local tourist board and so on? Is this something that is important to you?
We do, if I may say, Peng, for our properties in Hamburg, in Zurich, in Vienna, especially in particular those properties where we have a strong leisure market as well. It is extremely important to get connected to the local, let's say, tourism board and all the other institutions who try to promote the city. And I believe that hotels like ours are very important to promote the city. I always compare it with also leisure destinations. You have some destinations where 2 or 3 restaurants make out the success of a whole destination, because people travel to a beautiful place because they know they have that very cool place. So I think it's a very good relation or potential relation, and it has to be used.
Yeah, for me, most of my hotels have been in fairly large key gateway cities like Singapore, Shanghai, London. We're doing one in Sydney now. And in a way, those cities almost sell themselves. I've never really needed to go out and go to a particular market and say, hey, come to Sydney. Everyone wants to go there. Or come to Singapore. There are enough travelers that we can be generalist enough without needing to be too focused on particular markets.
Just be at the places to be.
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
I just have a follow-up question. Do you have either one of you have any significant proportion of business travelers in your properties?
Yeah, actually, we probably, particularly in London, have about 50% corporate market, or maybe more actually, 50 or 60%. In Singapore, maybe about 30%, and I think it's a good mix. When I say corporate, we have lots of things like architects and graphic designers, video game designers staying with us. Not traditionally the corporate as in a banker who turns up in a suit necessarily, but we certainly do have corporate accounts with those kind of companies.
Entertainment.
Yeah, entertainment.
Any kind.
In our case, it's similar. Well, it's like take Frankfurt. It's 99.9% corporate, I guess. I don't know, but it's like the really major part. In Hamburg or in Vienna, the picture is changing on a Thursday evening. You have a very high double occupancy all of a sudden. You have sometimes also elder couples who come to visit Hamburg or Vienna, go to the opera house, and during the week you have young business travelers. So but in the first place, our hotels are for the business or for the business audience. You have that word pleasure. It's something which became very popular in the last years, like the mix of business and leisure, and that's something which happens more and more. And family traveling to cities on the weekend, city breaks, where you go with your kids and you want to have a room where the kids are next door, and that's also an important trend.
Okay. Andreas Pflaum, please, your question. Micro is there.
Andreas Pflaum, founding member of Design Hotels, and the first design hotel after the Morgan in New York. First, I'd like to thank you, Maria Pütz-Willems. They brought us so many lessons today, they gave us so many answers, and thank you.
Most welcome.
But wie können jetzt
How can luxury hotels react and provide a new answer on the basis of personalized services? How does the staff have to react? How do you move about in your hotel? And how do you behave properly? Sometimes this is where the design hotels leave a lot to be desired for.
How chain hotels manage to react to this personal service you offer, for instance. Yeah, to make it very short.
How does what? Sorry?
How do chains manage to react to the personal service you offer? Yeah.
So innovations in Hotel Design und Style und Technologie und Personal, I mean, das sind wichtig, aber nicht.
Innovation in style is important, but nothing is more important than personal services. Design can easily be copied.
Can I say something here?
Please,
because I
please,
have
you both.
We have that big challenge because our people are dressed. We have a uniform which is jeans. We have one property called 25 Hours by Levi's. We have Red Wing shoes, and people are our staff is actually dressed in a very casual way, and our whole design is casual, and we tell them be casual and relaxed but yet professional, and that borderline is very hard. And if you compare with a luxury hotel and you start working at a, I don't know, Four Seasons, the whole design and the whole atmosphere is so conservative, and you're dressed in a beautiful suit, you become already conservative by the surroundings, and that's very different in our place, and therefore it's a big challenge. Yes, I agree.
What's your fast answer to
Well,
it?
for me, I always tell my staff, actually, probably not the right thing. I always tell them not to take their jobs too seriously. It's really about, our industry is about having fun and making sure your guests have fun, So I always encourage them to chat with the guests, to be a bit more informal, and to have fun in their job. So to me, hiring the people with the right personality is very, very, very important. I always tell my staff, don't take your job too seriously. You've got to have fun doing it,
As we run out of time now, I'm very sure after this 1 hour session that we will definitely see you growing, both of you, both your companies growing, and I can only say we all wish you a lot of fun, a lot of nice guests, cosmopolitan guests, and maybe some more PR and marketing like you had today. Thank you very much for coming, Christoph and Peng.